as we drive into the future with mobility of the future. Let's take a look at what the session is all about.
The globe is shifting towards electric mobility. Amid push to reduce carbon emissions and climate change concerns, and India is not holding back. With an ambitious target of 30% EVs, by 2030, India's EV journey has just begun. Electric vehicles offer a cleaner, more efficient alternative to traditional ICE vehicles. Despite policy push, challenges remain. High upfront costs, lack of charging infrastructure, battery technology hurdles are slowing adoption. But India has the potential to overcome these speed bumps. The country can accelerate e-mobility revolution for the world. As India drives toward a sustainable electric future, the question is, how fast can we get there? E-mobility, overcoming the speed bumps.
E-mobility overcoming the speed bumps. Are there any speed bumps or not? I'll request people behind me to kindly move away, please. Okay, I think we'll just start this as soon as the photo op session is over. Hardeep Singh Brar, thank you so much for taking out time this Saturday being with us. Rahul Bharti, thank you so much, sir. And Shubhranshu, of course, great to have you back. In fact, we have been having these gentlemen with us regularly, consecutively. In fact, you had seen Rahul Bharti and Shubhranshu when we discussed the future of mobility at the previous NEWS9 Global Summit in Stuttgart in Germany as well. I hope Hardeep will be able to join us for the next one as well. Gentlemen, let's get the ball rolling and let's get into first gear, if I may, or is first gear something of the past? Because we are talking about electric mobility. Rahul.
There are so many gears that the auto industry will change, and gears of technology, and technology is evolving. I think the auto industry is through almost a century of transform. For almost a century, it was quite static. And then in these 20 years, we'll see a change that we have never seen before. So multiple technologies, of course, electric, everybody's focus, including that of Maruti Suzuki. And we are very happy that we'll be launching an electric car, which will not just be for the Indian market, but will service about 100 markets of the world right sitting in India. And so Suzuki, our parent company, will not have EV manufacturing. They will locate it in India, and from India in Gujarat, we will be exporting to Japan, to Europe, to many other countries, and of course to the Indian customers in our home. And along with that, we'll have a host of all other technologies. We'll use all weapons possible to attack carbon emission.
So are these weapons, do they begin with H for hybrid or H for hydrogen, or is there some other weapon in your arsenal, sir?
You're right, both these H's are valid, but what is also very strong and very uniquely positioned for India is biofuel. And whether we talk about compressed biogas or we talk about ethanol and ethanol flex fuel vehicles, it's a very natural way of harnessing energy from maybe the sun or maybe from from waste and converting into useful energy while being low in carbon, while being low in methane emissions, and while being extremely friendly for the masses of India, the farmers, for example. So it's a way of linking clean energy with the mass segment of India.
Okay, so we will await all these launches and more details. Shubhranshu, a lot of technological discussion here, but EV or any new technology, to my limited understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, is not limited to just the technology. There is something which is going on inside the mind of a person, and that is about accepting change before perhaps embracing change. Talk to us about the mindset of the Indian consumer. Is the Indian consumer adept at quickly transitioning from one technology to another, or do we still take guarded steps in new technology adoption? I'll request you to switch on your mic, Shubhranshu.
It would be fair to say that the pace of adoption of technology across sectors in India is in fact world leading. But one has to see also that change and the adoption of change has to be in the seen in the right context, which is India has a very distinctive structure of market demand. Unlike, say, the developed West, where traditionally it was a market of very few, each having a lot. India has always been a market of numerous people, each having a little. But the fact that they may not be, on average, as affluent has not prevented adoption of technology. So I am not a big votary of per capita income and then a takeoff at a certain level, because the fact is that the market operates in many layers. And the other distinctive fact about India is that not only is it the most populous nation on the planet, it is also by far the youngest country on the planet. So as the minister was saying in the previous session, almost 40 crore Indians are less than 20 years of age. And they are highly connected, they are digitally immersed, and this generation has grown up as digital natives. So, now geography is not a limiting factor, accessibility is universal, and so basically ideas, inspirations, and influencer voices are trickling in from every corner. And so the need many times is provoked even before products may be available or accessible. And therefore, I think there is an inherent sophistication that has already happened. The second major thing is that the Indian ecosystem now is arranged around the mobile phone across sectors. And everybody who has a mobile phone in their pocket, a smartphone, is a walking, talking creator. And so basically, you have multiples of marketing information, consumer interactions, and the power of networks is immensely multiplicative. Just to put it in perspective, when a man went to the moon in July 1969, the total computing power that, let's say, NASA had would be less than what's in an ordinary washing machine today. And so the fact that automotive technologies have become hugely digitalized is something that people are now expecting as hygiene, not as a benefit or a value add.
Right.
And so I think the adoption of technology, the consumer expectation actually marches many times ahead of the ability of OEMs and others to deliver.
Right.
So we are very positive about the acceptance, the mass appreciation of what technology brings to everyday lives, and the demand across the automotive sector, in particular in commercial vehicles. We see that on an ongoing basis.
Right. Let's include Hardeep into this conversation. Hardeep, how much of it, when it comes to new product development, new types of vehicles, whether it is technologically driven or design driven, how much of it is a pull from the market that the consumer wants it? And how much of it is perhaps the supplier, the manufacturer, wanting to develop something new for the market and playing around with setting expectations and sometimes not living up to them and at times beating them as well?
I think that's an interesting question. I think it happened both ways. I think sometimes you need to find the latent demand in the consumers, what they may not have thought of, but what you think will work for them, right? And simultaneously, you're working on certain technologies. For example, if you look at EVs, I think EVs is a lot driven by the government push. When it started about, let's say about a decade back, when government started saying that, we need to make carbon neutral and we need to look at what is the long-term vision. I think everybody has been talking about carbon neutrality. And EVs are the true zero-emission vehicles, right? While there has been discussion about hybrid and some of the OEMs have been able to find out that, hybrid is something.
We have one in the room.
I'm looking at him.
The world is also absorbing hybrids.
So yes, hybrids have been able to make some way through, and I think that was the latent demand amongst the consumers, and some of the OEMs have found it right. But I think looking at the long-term perspective, I think EVs are the way forward because hybrid may be able to reduce it by a certain percentage, but if you really want to go quicker to the carbon neutrality, I think electric is the only way forward. So it's both, the push and the pull, which we have to look at.
Okay, and talk to us about Kia's electric mobility plans. We don't see too many Kia EV launches. Even at the Auto Expo, I think we didn't really come across too many EV car launches or announcements from Kia. So how seriously are you upping the game when it comes to electric mobility in India and, of course, even in the rest of the world?
As they say, there is a lull before the storm. So
Oh, there's a storm brewing. Rahul, I'm looking at you.
So Kia globally is working on 14 electric vehicles with investment of about $20 billion. And we've already launched the two, let me tell you, the EV6 was the World Car of the Year in 2023, which we launched in India, and the response have been phenomenal. 2024 World Car of the Year was EV9, which we launched this year, and we have started the bookings. We have 12 more vehicles to go. We are launching one in the middle of this year, around June, July. That was the first one. And the second one would come early next year. So 4 cars in a span of 3.5 years and more to go. And you'll see many
Fantastic.
more.
Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who have been waiting for Kia EV models, well, you have Hardeep Singh Brar here telling you that there are some coming soon. But what could perhaps be coming soon, if not sooner, and Rahul, let me take this to you, is the advent of perhaps Tesla into India. There are news reports of BYD perhaps looking at entering India more aggressively, setting up manufacturing in India. Unconfirmed reports, of course. But my real question to you is that competition in the auto space is now not limited to these 4 or 5 big players. There is a lot of form competition. Electronics manufacturers are getting into mobility. Take Xiaomi, for example. Take Japan's Sony, for example. These are companies which are historically being built on foundations of electronics engineering. And now they are taking the game to you, right into your garage, and competing with the likes of Maruti Suzuki. How do you see this entire emerging competition scenario playing out?
So this concept of form competition has been around globally for a while now. There have been earlier attempts, for example, the Apple car. What is happening is that traditionally the auto manufacturers, they are building more and more electronic controls and software into the car. And the electronic or even the telecom giants of the world, they were also thinking of getting into the car business. Now, one thing that the IT industry possibly underestimated about car manufacturing is the amount of quality, reliability, and the rigor and the detailing that goes into it. A car is a mechanical machine which houses some of us and is responsible for our lives. And it has to stay on for 10, 15, 20 years, maybe more, seeing all kind of abuse. All kinds of conditions, high speeds, velocity, acceleration, braking, accidents, God forbid, ozone, all kinds of corrosive environment impact. So it's not just the design, but it's the quality, which means adherence to that spec in mass manufacturing and in the serviceability and in the in use of the vehicle that has to be assured. This reliability element is very, very important. I have seen laptops which said, this program has performed an illegal operation and will be shut down. You can't do that with a car. So whether it's drive-by-wire or anything, you have to build reliability and be conscious that human beings are seated inside and they are stationed outside the car. So that element is important, and I think both sides are discovering they are coming close to each other. The traditional auto manufacturers are building more and more. They have something called software-defined vehicles. In our own technology roadmap, we have a very key imperative in our R&D strategy called software-defined vehicle. So we have to be compatible, including on concepts like data security. So the auto manufacturers are embracing IT skills, including AI and robotics at a very fast pace. Similarly, the IT sector is trying to imbibe that also. And this is good for the consumer. This kind of competition is good for the final consumer, not just in India, across the world.
Good for the consumer, but are auto brands, traditional auto brands, ready to embrace this competition? Is something that I really wanted to understand from you. Are we ready to take on this farm competition head on, or are we going back to the drawing board and figuring out, hey, they have something we don't, and perhaps the industry is moving in that direction?
This phenomena, it is not just competition, it is about collaboration also. So if you notice, when we talk about electric vehicles and the element of participation of the non-traditional kind of players will shoot up drastically. You'll have software developers, you'll have new business models, there will be people who will work on insurance, on aggregation, so many aspects. It will throw up opportunities for all, and we can benefit from them. For example, Maruti Suzuki has a major startup program. We know that there are some skills which come naturally to startups. So we have the humility and the curiosity to learn from them. So we are engaging with many startups. We are giving them free proof of concepts. We are throwing them challenges, and we are saying, can you develop a solution around it? So it's about collaboration also. And improving up to competition is also healthy. I mean, it brings out the best in favor of the consumer.
All right, I will let you go. I believe you are speaking at another venue now, Mr. Bharti. Thank you so much. But Shubhranshu, I want to bring you into this conversation and diversify the conversation. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, we also have Mr. Nishant Arya with us, Vice Chairman, JBM. All those beautiful long electric buses that you see plying in the city are JBMs. Shubhranshu, I want to come to you about the role of the auto industry. And the auto industry is not just limited to the cars that we drive and the ones that Hardeep makes available for us, or Rahul Bharti does. But we are also talking about commercial vehicles, which are pretty much the lifeline of the economy. And these are responsible for transporting everything that is produced, whether it is your onions and your tomatoes, to any other factory produced items that come to your doorstep and eventually get delivered to your house. So help us understand the magnanimity and the magnitude of how large a role does commercial vehicle segment play in contributing to India's GDP growth, number one. And number two, how is Tata Motors really gearing up to come up with different categories, different sizes, different varieties of vehicles which are ready to cater to the needs of the future?
It is well known that across the world, road-based logistics is an essential platform on which the economy is sustained and grows. And India is a high growth rate economy. If we are a $3 trillion plus economy, growing at a clip rate which will double every 10 years with 1.3 billion people, you can imagine that every decade and every $1 trillion that gets added will behave very differently. Now, in commercial vehicles, there are all modalities. There is a business-to-business equation. There is a business-to-consumer, especially in the small commercial vehicles. There is also a business-to-consumer, for example, in CV passenger, in the case of buses. Every part of the economy is touched by commercial vehicles in terms of the input as well as the output. If we are assembled here today, I can say with reasonable degree of confidence that the food that we will have, the catering would have arrived on cargo wheels. A lot of the furniture that you're sitting on, the fact that this building got constructed, infrastructure. In the last 10 years, we have seen growth across all slices of the economy, and capital formation has led to huge growth in infrastructure, in manufacturing. Therefore, to second guess the role for CVs in the future is a no-brainer. It is going to grow by leaps and bounds. At the same time, the market shapes, morphs, and mutates positively. For example, if you see the billion-ton kilometers, that equation is very healthily growing, and with the GDP growth rate, it will only accelerate. But at the same time, we also have better performing vehicles. chassis that carry higher load. And so therefore the number of vehicles is not the only exclusively important indicator. It's also how much of cargo is actually moving on wheels. We also have multimodal transport now. Railways is also accelerating. And so the nature of hub-to-hub transport may also significantly change for the better overall. Last but not the least, there has been an explosive growth in consumption on the ground, and we do a number of researches, including sentiment surveys. Last mile transport, say from the period of COVID lockdown onwards, the proliferation of mini trucks, micro trucks, even three-wheelers for that matter, indicates a very positive sentiment for last mile connectivity. Cut to the time before COVID, how many times were you ordering things online which reached your doorstep? Today, it's not once, but several times during the course of the day. So the consumer journey is also changing, and commercial vehicles has a very, very bright future in the country.
Let's throw the ball in your court, or shall we say, let's recharge this discussion back to electric mobility. So EV buses, of course, we have seen a huge proliferation of those on our streets, and not just in Delhi. In fact, any big city that you go to, you see that AV is the flavor. Now, it seems that most industry data that you come across, it tells you that India is on track when it comes to electric mobility for commercial vehicles, but India is perhaps lagging behind when it comes to EV penetration in passenger vehicles. So talk to us about your experience of really building this mindset of electric mobility, and thereon come to the point of whether we have everything that we need. I'm talking particularly charging infrastructure, I'm talking battery swapping, and perhaps even lesser dependence on a country like China to provide us electric batteries and the ingredients that go into it.
I think that's a very good point, Karthik, because the EV industry thrives on the EV ecosystem. So EV ecosystem is a cornerstone for the industry to really grow, and any country looking at the EV ecosystem is something which would kickstart the whole growth journey. Because if I talk about buses, why buses is one of the fastest growing segments in EVs, because we have charging infrastructure which is captive in depots for city buses, for intercity and luxury coaches. There are multiple charging systems which are coming on different highways. We have very large energy density driven battery chemistries, whether NMC, LFP, or many others which are coming up as of now, which are driving this growth. Definitely, we do have a challenge today when we look at the supply chain, where we have dependence on a few neighboring countries as well as few other countries. But I think with the time of growth we have and the kind of investments which are happening in the whole ecosystem, in the next 3 to 5 years, we would be quite independent. I would not say fully independent, at least in the next 7 to 8 years, which would be the time span required for us to be leveraging all the different resources we have. But definitely we are moving in the right direction. Multiple countries, I was in Europe this week, I just got back, that the kind of growth we are seeing in our country in commercial vehicle segment, whether it's trucks or buses or three-wheelers or two-wheelers, I think is unprecedented. And people have been able to understand and really see how they're contributing back, especially after COVID, the importance of health and environment which is attached to this, especially when we are working towards a 500 gigawatt renewable energy programs at an ecosystem level. We generate green, we consume green whilst we do this. But on the supply chain and the whole manufacturing footprint and the technology base, with the focus coming on semiconductors, the kind of investments were happening in the hardware and firmware, on the battery, PLI, on electric vehicles, I think we are putting all the right pieces together for the ecosystem to develop and grow further. But definitely, in the passenger vehicle segment, there are few good companies which have launched products, but the customers are looking forward to many more products as they go forward, for them to really see that EV is not only the second vehicle which they may want, but becomes the first and the primary choice when they compare to other ICE vehicles. So I think that transition is where we are at this point. And being an industry which is driven by TCO, so total cost of ownership becomes very relevant. And what we've seen why buses grew very fast was, in a city segment, you have about 200 to 250 kilometers of utilization per day, which takes about 75 to 80,000 kilometers a year. And in a lifetime, you go to close to 1 million. So when that happens, you have a definitive route, you have utilization. And it's a focus because it's meant for the Aam Aadmi, for the public at large, and it's catering to the common man there. Similarly, in other areas also where TCO is promising, today actually even without subsidy, these segments are able to scale up. I always feel that subsidy is a great catalyst to kickstart the industry and for people to understand how things would work, for having proof of concepts and for cities to do pilot projects. But eventually the industry has to stand up on its own and to really grow from there. And even the focus around the financing bit is coming in a big way. A lot of impact funds and other institutions are focusing on this. But I feel that the infra tag, which is required for the EV industry, is very important for it to get the next fillip of growth, clearly. And the kind of investments happening in R&D in India are also quite promising. So where startups, financial institutions, funding a lot of this research and development, big corporates, and education institutions like IITs, BITS, and many others are coming together to develop good tech.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more with you. Hardeep, let me understand this from you, and I think that's a valid point that Nishant just raised about subsidies being a great ignition, but then the drive has to be carried forward by real demand and real need. So subsidies also, we saw subsidies in the form of FAME come and go. At the same time, we didn't really see as much manufacturing activity as we should have seen, given our focus on electric mobility. So talk to us about how do you see these challenges, and these are real challenges where large investments are required by companies, from R&D, setting up gigafactories, to eventually convincing the consumer to go ahead and buy what they want to produce. So talk to us about the challenges and what, according to you, should be the best strategy to overcome these.
Let's first talk about subsidies, why they're required, and till when do we need them. So today, with the subsidy where the GST is about 5%, and if you look at the price parity today, it's about 25 to 30%. That means EVs are 25 to 30% more expensive than the equivalent ICE model. Now, imagine if you don't have the subsidy. Imagine if you have 48% GST instead of 5% GST. The pricing of the EV cars would be at least 70 to 80% more expensive than ICE. And then why would people buy it? Even with a price gap of 25 to 30%, there's so much of resistance for consumer to buy an EV because there are other challenges as well. Talking about other challenges, I think in comparison to all the other mode of transportation, as you rightly mentioned, cars are left behind. And the big reason for that is that all the other mode of transportation are intra-city. Whereas cars, you tend to take once in a while. Even if you are going for 2 vacations in a year, you want that your car should last at least 400 or 500 kilometers. Today, all the cars, I would say the large number of cars, they don't last up to 250 kilometers on a long range. Because unfortunately, while the ICE engines give you more fuel efficiency when you go on highways, on EVs, it's on the contrary. When you're driving at a speed of 120 kilometers per hour or more, your range actually dips down, and that is a bigger challenge when you're going in the car. So having the cars with the longer range, I think the minimum range that you need is about 500 kilometers, which is at least claimed, so that even when you're going at a high speed, you can at least do 400 kilometers, and I don't think we do more than 400 kilometers in a day. Or the second point is that we have a great charging infrastructure, which is not the case today. And hence, when somebody is buying an EV, he's in double mind that if I have to go long distance, what would I do? And hence, EVs are coming in handy for people who are driving intracity, or they are not going outstation, and they have large amount of running within the city. And unless we solve these issues, I think these are the big challenges. Another 2 challenges which are not as big. One is the resale value. There is still a lot of doubt in the consumer's mind that what is going to be the resale value of an EV, which is not certain. And the second issue is still of financing. A lot of financiers, they are still funding at a slightly higher rate than other financiers. So put together, price parity, number 1, driving range, charging infrastructure, resale value, and the financing. These are the big 5 problems which are there today. And if we solve them one by one, I'm sure the penetration would go up further.
And in comes BYD with a 5-minute full charge. Do you think technologies like these make it more difficult for traditional auto players like you to compete against, and technologies like these also help you own a car, an electric car, as your first choice for intra-city or intercity.
See, we must understand how does your car charge in 5 minutes. On the other side, you need a charger, which is a heavy-duty charger or what we call ultra-fast charger. In fact, we claim in EV6 that you can charge from 0 to 80% in 18 minutes. But then on the other side, you have a charger, which is 250 kilowatt-hour charger. If you look at the large number of chargers, they are all in the range of 30 to 60 kilowatts. With that, if you need to charge, you will still take an hour or more than an hour's time. So we have about 15 chargers, which are 150 kilowatt hours, which are probably one of the fastest, and we have one 210 kilowatt hour charger. Now imagine where is that, and whether everybody can take his or her car to that charger. I think you need chargers. Cars may have great technology, great charging speed, but I don't think we have chargers because somebody need to invest into that, and they come at a much higher cost for charging. So we need to see how many people are really willing to pay for that.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we also have Mr. Anil Agarwal in the house, Chairman of Vedanta. Let's have a huge round of applause for him. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us. I believe your session will start in just a bit. Shubhranshu, I want to come to you about something which is absolutely imperative when it comes to road transport, and that is about safety, and safety of not just the driver, but safety even of those who are on the road. Tell us about what Tata Motors is doing, and especially commercial vehicles. What is it that you're doing to make India's roads safer? But before I let you answer that, there's something that you and us are working on together. Let's take a quick look at that, please.
आधुनिकता के इस जमाने में देश के जांबाज ट्रक सारथी कौशल और बेहतर टेक्नोलॉजी से कैसे बनाएं अपने सफर को ज्यादा सुरक्षित और सफल। इसी मकसद के साथ टाटा मोटर्स और TV9 नेटवर्क लेकर आ रहे हैं ट्रकिंग इनटू द फ्यूचर, सेफर ऑलवेज। इसके जरिए ट्रक सारथियों को मिलेगी सुरक्षा और उन्नति की एक नई दिशा। अगर आप भी एक ट्रक सारथी हैं और इस अभियान का हिस्सा बनना चाहते हैं, तो तुरंत स्क्रीन पर दिए गए नंबर पर मिस कॉल करें और जुड़ जाएं सुरक्षा के इस नए सफर से।
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a new campaign that we are unveiling just today, Trucking into the Future, with our partners Shubhranshu, Tata Motors. Shubhranshu, I just want to understand from you, how important is road safety for Tata Motors when you make your trucks and commercial vehicles?
As is self-evident, there is nothing more important than a human life. But at the same time, accidents on highways and on roads has an eroding impact on the GDP overall. And we find that one of the things that India's march towards a developed nation status, a leading world power, we have had massive expansion in terms of the road network. But in terms of road fatalities, unfortunately, our record is not the best. And this is something that the government is very keen on, and as industry leader, we are very keen on, which is why we made a judicious decision to partner with the TV9 network. There are three inputs here. One is inherent to the vehicle: safer vehicles, better cabins, driver alert systems, lane departure warnings, monitoring, telematics, everything that is inherent in the mechanical object, in the ecosystem, in the digitalization itself to make road journeys safer for everybody on the road as well as for the drivers. The second is the mindset and the ecosystem that evolves around the consciousness of safety. And one of the things that we don't celebrate enough is the critical role that commercial vehicles drivers have in driving the economy forward. They are frontline warriors. They are leading overall very difficult lives. It's a life of rigor. And the least we can do is to make their environment much safer. As a part of that, we are not only doing content, we are also doing ecosystem enablements like health checkups, eye checkups, safety boot camps, and also consciousness for everybody else. There is also a mindset issue about, commercial vehicles on the roads. And the last is culture creators, editorial teams, owned media, earned media. It must be very resonant. We must be able to promote the consciousness that you are safe if everybody else on the road is safe. We are, in a sense, there is an umbilical cord tying everybody to everybody else once you're on the roads. You cannot be safe all by yourself. Besides that, we are trying to take this massively into the influencer space. And a lot of what you're seeing and what will follow, and the editorial, my compliments to the editorial team to have understood and imbibed this so fast, is actually life on the roads. What does it take to be safer? And then how inherently the products are safe, that needs to be understood through training and through actual use. As Clay Sharkey once said, it's easy for society to invent things. It's difficult for society to adopt them and to adapt them fully into their lives. So the effort is a very credible effort. We want to institutionalize this. Every year we've been doing trucking into the future. This time it is exclusively trucking into the future with an emphasis on safety. Our belief is we are doing it for the economy, we are doing it for the nation, we are doing it for the countless number of drivers who are our partners, but we also want to create consciousness among stakeholders, whether they are regulators, government authorities, traffic authorities, fleet owners, logistics service providers, OEMs, and of course, Tata Motors Commercial Vehicles as market leader.
Thank you so much, Shubhranshu, for this. And I just want to conclude this conversation now. Hardeep, if I can bring you in. Bharat NCAP, why is it voluntary? Do you think safety needs to be made compulsory? Safety ratings need to be made compulsory? And in the interest of the consumer, should there be perhaps penalty, higher taxes on cars which are not safe enough?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. I think while, yes, the safety of the cars is, there's no two doubts about that. Safety of the cars is extremely important. But let me bring in a few more perspectives here. I think NCAP takes care of the passive safety of the consumer. Your car shell comes into play when the accident happens. I think we need to work a lot on active safety features. For example, you need to have sensors in your cars, you need to have safety alerts in your car, you need to have ADAS. So while you can add number of features, but very important, I feel, is the active safety feature. But moment you start adding more and more safety features, you start making cars stronger,
goes up.
You start adding more tech into your car, the prices go up, right? And we are already seeing the bottom of the pyramid is, the hatchbacks and the sedans, they are dipping with every passing year. It used to be both put together about 60%, now both put together about 30%. And it is going down because even after so you have two big rocks here, you have emissions, you have safety. We have already seen with BS6 coming in, the prices of the entry-level cars have gone so high, the income levels of the Indian population has not caught up with that. And hence we are seeing at the entry level, the demand is very, very weak. Now imagine you want to make NCAP and you want to add that, the prices would go up further. And people at the bottom the cars will become costlier, and will become unaffordable for that consumer. So you have to strike a balance. And also another very important thing is, as with NCAP, another flip side is that the cars will become heavier. So your fuel efficiency actually goes down. So that is putting pressure on your import bill as well. So you have to strike a balance. We have to see which consumer wants fuel efficiency, which consumer wants safety, and we have to give it to everybody. But yes, I think the responsibility of each OEM is to make sure that the cars are safer than ever before.
Right, and I want to give the last word to you, Nishant. I want to understand from you this fascination with buying cars. I know Hardeep is not going to like this question, but this fascination of 4 million cars being sold in India and everybody housing 2 to 3 cars in the country, and we don't really take enough public transport. So do you think the future of mobility for India, for cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Bengaluru, Hyderabad, congested, bursting out of the seams, do you think there is something that we should do to make city commute using public transport a little more convenient for those who can afford buying cars?
No, I think it will be a multimodal transportation system where last mile connectivity would become very essential, that how people who are using cars may not use personal cars at all times going forward. As you see cities like Singapore going forward, 25 years fast forward, 2047, Viksit Bharat, what kind of cities in India would we be looking for where anybody and everybody is using public transportation, is also owning cars when they need to use cars. But different modes of transportation would make it a lot more comfortable for people to move from point to point. And owning cars will be important, but may not be a necessity for anybody and everybody at that point in time. So I think that is where one would want to be at that juncture, where it is so convenient that you're using all modes of transportation based on where you need to go.
Well, let's hope that happens sometime soon. But yeah, I think Hardeep wants to respond to that. Hardeep.
Yeah, I just want to give us statistics that India has the lowest per thousand car
Car
population.
adoption,
We are
yeah.
only 33. So while yes, it may look like that there are a lot of cars in the metros, but on the whole, 33 per thousand is the lowest in the world.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hardeep wants you to buy more cars, and of course, Nishant is hoping that we take the buses. But anyway, I think let's leave it at that for now. Thank you so much, Nishant Arya, Hardeep Singh Brar, and of course, Shubhranshu Singh for joining us here.